In today's birth story, I want you to pay really close attention to what Lily has done to practice before labor ever began. Without even knowing it, Lily was utilizing quantum physics to put herself in the emotional state that she wanted to be in during labor by just building and following through with that simple daily routine. Any repetitive behavior or routine that puts you in a calm and happy emotional state will rewire your brain to move towards those emotions. That's one reason that daily affirmations and meditations can work so well for birth, but they have to be practiced. It is really true that what you put into your birthing method is what you're going to get out of it. Welcome to the Birth Education Center podcast, hosted by myself, Care Messer, an entrepreneur, birth educator, and doula. My team and I want to help you discover your options in birth and postpartum, how to find your voice, and how to use that voice to navigate our maternal healthcare system. You and your baby are not just a number. This information includes doulas too. Now let's get started. Well, I want to welcome Lily here today. We don't have Jeff, he's working, but Lily's going to tell us her birth story. The unique part about this class is there are three couples in this class that really bonded well together and have stayed in contact and have done their postpartum time together. So I'm going to get them all back together for a postpartum interview soon. But today we're going to talk about Lily's story. Lily, do you want to say hi?
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to share my birth story. It was honestly probably the best day of my life. And so I'm excited to have it documented for me to go back to, for my son to hopefully go back to, and to share with other parents going through this.
So let's start from the beginning.
Okay.
Pregnancy, was it easy to get pregnant? Did you have any losses before? How was your journey to get pregnant?
It took longer than I expected, and I'm very type A, as listeners will probably realize throughout this conversation, and as you probably know from our class. I had gone off birth control for a while. I was taking all my prenatals far in advance, and I just thought, I'm going to get pregnant on the first try. I've worked hard. I know this is my future. And it took 11 months, and towards the end, it was getting frustrating and just feeling like, is this ever going to happen? We're going to go to the doctor. They said we could go back at 13 months, so I'm going to set up this appointment soon. And on the 11th month of trying, I woke up one morning and took my pregnancy test like I do at that time of the month. And it was positive, and it was just overwhelmingly joy, excitement, love. My husband and I were both crying. And I think because we had this time to really want and wish for this, we felt so prepared. I think if I had gotten pregnant on the first month, it would have been a little, oh crap, what are we going to do? But we had all this time to prepare, and it was just overwhelmingly joy.
It's funny because when we are type A, we always do our part, so we don't understand why there's a lag, right? It's like, Come on, universe, what the heck? It's so funny. So you did have more time to prepare, but when it comes to birth, what fears and worries were there? Because I noticed when you talked to me, you said, I really want an unmedicated birth. Why an unmedicated birth? And what were you bringing in, fear-wise or worry-wise?
I really wanted an unmedicated birth, and I think it just aligns with a life value of mine, which is to live simply. And I had heard a lot of other birth stories about you get an epidural and then you have a cascade of interventions. Then your birth stalls and you need Pitocin, then you need a more epidural, and it just keeps going and going. And it just didn't feel simple. And then I also would have lost the freedom of movement, which is something that's really important to me and I knew would be a great tool for me in my birth process. So I felt really passionate about having an unmedicated birth. My mom had 2 of her 3 kids unmedicated, my older brother, myself. Her third child was 12 pounds, so she got an epidural for that. But I knew that this was something that I thought I could do with the right tools and preparation. But everybody around me just kept laughing when I would say, I want an unmedicated birth. And they would say, yeah, okay, I said that too. And you'll see when you get there, it's really hard and you're not going to be able to do it. No one can. Good luck with that. It was just so overwhelmingly negative feedback. And I think I brought some of that to the class. Like, okay, if I want to do this, what are the tools I need? How can I be successful? How can I set myself up for success to have this unmedicated birth that I really want?
And I think that is the key, right? We hear all the negativity from people we really love and they care about us and they may have had a really negative experience. And I honestly think they're just trying to prevent the same disappointment that they experienced. And in the same realm, how did we prepare for our birth? What tools,
Exactly.
like you're coming into class going, okay, here's what I'm up against. There's this massive mountain in front of me. I don't have shoes on yet. What do I need? And literally that's why you take a birth class. That's why you hire a doula. That's why you read books, listen to podcasts, because you don't know what you're in for. And baby is this wild card in the whole situation. You literally have to prepare for everything, practice, and then let it go, which is so opposite what type A people like to do.
Yes, but your class gave me the confidence to do that. Like the affirmations that you gave to us that we listened to in a download, some of them really talked about letting go, trusting your body, just taking things step by step and not trying to control the whole outcome. And that was so helpful for me to just get in that mindset that no matter what happens, no matter what the mountain looks like, I can get to the top still.
And my biggest worry as type A was the mountain would be really snowy. I'm going to slide all the way back. Like I understand the fear and the trepidation leading up to that. And it's the practice. Like it really is the practice. You're mentioning affirmations. What did you do to practice? Like what were your tools that you came in equipped with for labor to start?
I think I practiced a lot. I'm proud of myself for the work that I put in before labor. So every day I would listen to your birth affirmation recording once or twice a day. Then every night I started small, maybe 5 and then 15, then 30 minutes. I would listen to my birth playlist that I'd put together with just really calming music. I would sit on my birth ball. I would close my eyes. I would use the 40 blinks eye mask that you recommended. And I would just practice envisioning different labor scenarios. I would practice my breathing techniques that I plan to use. And so by the time I went into labor, I had been doing this maybe for a month for 30 minutes every night.
So good. So good.
Yeah. I got a TENS unit, which we talked about in class, and I practiced using that sometimes. Maybe I did that once every 2 or once every 3 nights. I also wrote out the affirmations that were most meaningful to me and I watercolored them. I'm not very artsy, but then I had these note cards that I could bring with me to read or have my husband or my mom read to me during birth. And that was really nice too.
That's incredible. I thought I was the only one who was that anal with their practice. Because I had a mindset I had to shift. And that's what it takes is that repetition. That's how it works with the mind. And anything that we know about quantum reality, quantum physics now, it takes a while of living in like you lived in the calm of the music, what you wanted to experience. Like you literally started patterning that. So your body goes, oh yeah, this, okay. That's why
I know
it
what
works.
to do.
That's why it works. So sexy. A+, girl. Love it. Okay. So I want to hear your birth story.
Okay. So it was Friday morning and my husband had just left for work. It was about 7:30, 7:45 in the morning. And I get out of bed and my water breaks, just a slow trickle. And I think, did I just pee myself? Maybe I'm going to be a little too honest on this podcast. Did I just pee myself? Did my water break? What's going on? And I really did not want my water to break before I went into labor. This was one of my main things that I didn't want to happen. And so I was just crossing my fingers that it was pee. And then maybe 15 minutes later, I had another little trickle. And I thought, okay, this is my water. Most likely, I'm going to call the hospital and see what they say.
You know what I'm impressed with? Because you practice so well, if you were even focusing just a little bit on, I don't want my water to break, your body was like, oh, water's supposed to break to start this. You had your mindset dialed in. So I'm wondering if that's why it's like, all right, we know what to do. Oh, that's fantastic.
You keep thinking about this. Let's get it going. So my water breaks. I call the hospital and I tell them in more detail what had happened. They said, yeah, that sounds like your water breaking. Why don't you come in? And I had wanted to labor at home for as long as I could to prevent interventions. Another reason I didn't want an epidural is I have really low blood pressure, and I know that an epidural can cause it to drop more. I also have fainting spells, and I was just worried if I got to the hospital, they were going to want me to do all these things. I was going to have to get an epidural. I was going to pass out. I wouldn't even be cognizant for the birth, all these spirals. So that was another reason I didn't want one. So we take our time getting to the hospital. My husband comes home from work. We just finish packing up the car, make some PB&J sandwiches and head over. We get there around 11:45, and I knew from our class I didn't have to rush, but I did have to get there. I needed a snack before I got there just in case they were picky about that. So we get to the hospital, they check us in, and at this point I'm having some kind of period level cramps, kind of intense period cramps, but nothing too bad. I would maybe stop on our way into the hospital and kind of pause and turn inwards a little bit, but nothing too intense. We check in and they say, okay, wait in the lobby for us to call you. We're waiting, and I start walking the halls. I know I need movement to keep this baby progressing and really to kickstart labor. And since my water had broke, I knew I was on a clock. And so I really wanted to keep things progressing. But soon after walking the halls, it was too much. At first, I would just pause when a surge would came, and then I had to sit down. And then by the time I got up and took a few steps, another surge was coming. So we just sat in the lobby, and maybe you'll find this funny. We brought all of these tools. I had essential oils. I had my birth ball. I had my 40 Blinks eye mask, everything in the car. The only thing I had with me was my cell phone and noise canceling headphones. And Jeff goes up to the lobby and says, do you think it's going to be a lot longer? We have a lot of tools in the car that my wife would like. Can we bring them up into the lobby? And they said, no, it probably won't be that long. We're watching every other mother get called and go back. And it's busy. People are coming and going. We're seeing moms go in, come out. And we're thinking, why aren't I getting called? I think it's because I was so calm. And they thought, this is a first-time mom. She's not really presenting any serious symptoms. We'll just let her keep going. At this point, the lights are bright. There's a group of intern doctors getting a tour of the hospital. A grandma is sitting next to me trying to show me photos of her newborn baby. A cleaning Zamboni is going by. We've been in the lobby for 2 hours.
Oh my gosh.
And I cannot get comfortable on these chairs. I try squatting in front of the chair. I try leaning over the chair. Nothing is working. And I remembered what you had talked to us about, the 5 elements of birth. And I said, I need to go somewhere quiet, dark, without people. I need to be alone. So they had these individual bathrooms there. And I went in. I was so clammy and sweaty. I get butt naked. And lay on the bathroom floor. This is probably the most disgusting thing I've ever done in my life. It looked clean, though. It didn't look too dirty.
You don't care, do you? You do not care. You're like, comfort is number one. Holy cow.
I had only been in the bathroom for maybe 15 minutes when Jeff came and got me and said, okay, they're ready for you. I was like, okay, I need help getting my clothes back on, this diaper they gave me to put on. And we go into triage, and the nurse checks to make sure it was my water that had broken. She said, yes, it is. And she checks me, and I'm a 6. I'm 6 centimeters dilated. I am elated. I am shocked. I am thrilled. I have a burst of energy. I'm so excited for how labor is progressing at this point. Because from so many friends, I thought this might be a 1 or a 2. I have no idea what labor feels like. I could be nowhere near the finish line. And to hear that I was a 6 in a number scale, more than halfway there, was great news for me. So she says, okay, I think in her mind, she was like, oh, yeah, we got to get you in a room now. We've waited a little too long.
It's actually active labor, and we kept you in the lobby for 2 hours.
Uh-huh. And at this time, I met my midwife, the most amazing woman I had met. She comes down, she gets on my level, she talks in the most calming, reassuring voice, just tells me, we're going to do this, we're going to get started. I have all the tools I need within my body. I can have this baby, and we're going to get through it together. Her kindness blew me away. And throughout the labor, I'll share more examples of how amazing she was, but she was great.
Because we want to give her a shout out for real. We've got some great midwives at Kaiser. Awesome.
She was amazing. We leave triage, get into my hospital room. At this point, Jeff goes down to get all of these tools from the car that I've been waiting for. And at this time, my mom arrives. And we had really wanted a doula, but found that it was just a little out of our price range. And so instead invited my mom into the labor room. My mom is amazing. She's here watching my son while I'm doing this right now. But she asked me what books I was reading to prepare for labor and bought them herself to read them. She bought a book about becoming a new doula to read what would be most supportive for moms in the labor process. I know, she's amazing. So she arrived at this time. And this time in the hospital room was maybe the hardest time for me. They were trying to get my IV block in and we're just having a really hard time doing that. They were asking me a lot of questions like, what was my plan for birth control after the baby came? And I was like, why are you asking me this?
Isn't that the craziest thing? You're like, now, why can't we wait till postpartum to ask that question? Because it's on your list.
I just yelled abstinence. Stop talking to me. So that was a hard few moments for me. I was laying over the bed, just trying to get comfortable, sitting, I think just on the floor, waiting for my birth ball. And then the rest of labor progressed pretty well. Our new nurse noticed that I was already a 6, and I had on my birth plan that I didn't want to be offered any drugs, but I was open to laughing gas. I was open to nitrous oxide, and she saw that on my birth plan and offered it right away. And I thought, oh, I don't need that yet. I'm just starting. Let's save that for later. And she said, you're already a 6. You're in active labor. This is a pretty intense time. If you want it, this would be the time to take it. And that also triggered to me that if this is the time that I would need that, and I don't feel like I need it at all yet, let's wait this out and see how long I can go. And it was true the whole time throughout my labor. I never felt like there was a time that I couldn't do this or that I needed the epidural. There was never a moment where I thought, oh gosh, okay, I've reached my limit. I felt like I had more capacity even.
And I'm glad that you say that, because sometimes that suggestion could flip a mom into, oh my gosh, it's going to get worse. Oh my gosh, I need to be rescued, and put them into hyper overdrive of someone better save me, which sometimes we naturally go into that, but words matter. Even just to drop it. She doesn't want to, okay, it's here if you need it, and leave it instead of let me rescue you because you don't even know what you're in for yet. Don't put that in my mind.
Yeah.
Don't put that in my mind. Ooh, that's a really good, I hope listeners are listening to that. Because sometimes they'll show you a pain scale of 10 faces. Like, where are you in this grimace line of grimaces? You always say 10. And then they don't ask you again. If you say 5, then they'll keep asking over. And pretty soon you're like, oh my gosh, it's going to get 10 times worse than that. We don't need that in labor. It's not a broken leg. Like, just.
I had on my birth plan, don't ask me about my pain. And I had shown my midwife at an appointment, maybe like 38 or 39 weeks. I showed her my birth plan to make sure it was aligned and see if she had any thoughts on it. And that was one thing she said they wouldn't be able to honor. They were going to have to ask me about my pain because they were required to chart it. But they didn't. They asked me in the lobby multiple times what my pain level was. I think trying to decide who to admit, because it was such a busy day, how to prioritize everyone there. But once I got in, they never asked me again about my pain, which I was surprised about, but really happy that they didn't.
Maybe it's because it was already charted 20 times because you've been in the lobby for 3 hours.
Yeah, probably. My mom and Jeff helped me remember to breathe slowly. What really helped was they would breathe really loud and audibly to help me match their pace, because when these surges were getting intense, it was hard for me to remember to slow down my breath, and hearing them really helped.
Great.
They would make really low audible noises to help me match them because I kept going kind of high. And after birth, Jeff said it was really funny. I have a horrible voice. And so he said I would try to be low and then just start going up and up. And he was trying not to laugh at my voice. And he would read my affirmations to me. They would help me have sips of water. And I just felt really inward during this process. Not blacked out, but I don't really remember having my eyes open. I don't really remember switching positions very much. I know I tried the toilet, didn't really like it, tried a few different positions in bed, but I mostly was on the birth ball, leaning over the bed. And what I think helped a lot during this stage was we had gone over so many different birthing option positions that I felt really confident to say, okay, this isn't working for me. Let's try this. And I also had printed out a sheet showing all of the different positions that my mom and Jeff both had. And so they could turn to it and say, oh, hey, you have this position on your sheet. Do you want to try this? Or do you want to try this position? That was really helpful.
Girl, that type A, man, it pays off. It pays off. With a supportive team. You can totally when you have a supportive team like that, I want to compliment this team, because Jeff was very engaged in class, asked a lot of questions, like he was doing his homework in class as well. And the fact that you could do the prep work, trust them, and go inward is key. It's so key.
I told them one of my goals during labor was to not have to make any decisions. And so they had the authority to make decisions for me, and they knew exactly what I wanted. I had total trust in them, and I could just be totally inwards and let them run the ship for me.
Yeah, well, they didn't say abstinence for the birth control question. So yeah, next time you'll know. That one's coming down the pike.
And then one other thing I'll add is that my water continued to trickle all throughout the labor process. And this was kind of annoying because every couple of surges, I would feel like I was peeing myself, and it was just disgusting. I did not like that. I wish that my water would have broken in it. Well, maybe not, because I know that it provided cushion for my baby and took a lot of the pressure off. But that wasn't something that I was expecting, and it wasn't really enjoyable.
From the girl who stripped down naked and got on a dirty bathroom floor to labor before she was even in the room, she's disgusted because she might feel like she's peeing herself. And your water did break, but your body is still producing water. So every time the baby's head moves, that's why it's leaking.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So every little wiggle and movement, because I mean, it's not the Sahara Desert in there, right?
I thought it was just one bag of water, and when it was out, it was out.
It is, but baby plugs the hole. So the water that normally comes in still fills up behind. You're still drinking and all that kind of stuff. So baby's not sitting with no water. It's just, it releases, puts baby right down on that cervix. And then every time they move their head or their hand, in your case, so great.
Yeah.
So great. The feral woman who dropped to her knees.
I know people who have never given birth stare at me when I tell that part of the story, just like, you are disgusting, feral human. But you know what? You go through it. You have an unmedicated birth, and tell me about the feral things you do.
Exactly. And that feral thing makes me a fierce mother.
Yes.
So back off. So great.
And the hospital was also really open to my birth plan. I had a fear that in this hospital setting, they weren't going to be open to it. But the nurse really took the time to read through my plan. The birth plan that you help us prepare, I think, was really helpful because it just had pictures. I had talked to my midwife about it before we went in, so I knew that they would be pretty much aligned with most of these. And I knew what items were going to be maybe a little bit more of a sticky point. So that process went really well too. And then I think one of the coolest things was knowing how my body was going to work because of your class. And listeners are probably thinking you told me to say because of your class so much. You didn't. I just loved your class so much, and I can't recommend it enough.
Thank you. It's so fun to teach, because when you have active participants that really want to understand how the process works, then they don't have to freak out in labor because they're like, oh, they're offering this to make this work, but it's already working, so I'm going to say no to that. It just makes a huge difference in knowing what's actually happening. You make more conscious choices that way. So
yeah. So my body, I could really visualize and feel the contractions or the surges pulling out and up for most of the surges. And then all of a sudden, I started feeling them push down. And I didn't have any urge to push. I could just actively feel this change in how these surges were coming. And I was really picturing like waves in the ocean and feeling like a tide pool. And so while these surges were changing shapes and morphing, I could change my visualization of how the waves were coming. And I guess my body changed during this time too, because the nurse all of a sudden asked if I wanted to get checked again. And I hadn't been checked since triage. In my mind, I thought maybe an hour or two had passed, but let's see, I got to the hospital at 11:45, in the lobby until maybe 1:45, 2. Now I guess it had only been 3 hours. Now it's about 5 p.m. They check me. And my mom, all of her labors were almost exactly 12 hours. And so I was expecting about a 12-hour labor. And she gets the midwife. The nurse asks for the midwife to come. She checks me and says I'm a 10 and that I can push on the next surge. but I still didn't feel a strong urge to push. And so I asked her what station my baby was at. And she said a -2. And I knew from class that I didn't want to start pushing. I had in my head I wasn't going to push until I was a +1 or a +2. Because I just didn't want to.
I don't know how you even remember all these details. It's cracking me up. Oh, pregnancy brain was not present when you were in class, obviously.
Well, there was a part in labor in the pushing stage. I feel like I didn't remember enough. This is something I'll probably want to change for my next birth. And the midwife was receptive to me not wanting to push yet. And so I just worked through a few more contractions, what felt like maybe 3 or 4 more contractions. She checked me again and said I was a +1 and to start pushing. So I tried a few different pushing positions. I think I tried on hands and knees, and the urge to push just totally went away. And I also will say during the surges, a lot of people say you can do anything for a minute, and that was one of my affirmations. My surges were not a minute. From the beginning, they were almost 3 minutes. It would be a surge, and then when I would reach the peak, it would go down maybe halfway, and then I would have another surge. It would go down about halfway and then have another surge. So really this stepping stone of 3 surges, and then I would finally have a release and reprieve and time to catch my breath. So that affirmation wasn't the best.
I can do anything for 3.5 minutes. Anything.
Yeah.
But I love that you understood there was a pattern, because you focused on it, and then you're like, oh, okay, then that's what I have to do. Go with the flow. This is what my body and baby need.
Yeah. And so when I got on hands and knees, surges went away. I felt almost nothing. And at this time, I just felt so much more lucid. I don't know if it was in my head or just things change in your body, but during the surge time, I was so inward. I was so in labor, la la land. And then when it was time to start pushing, I just felt like, I don't know, the clouds had parted, the sun was out. Not really, it was dark, but I just felt so present again. Feel that way?
You're right, because it does change hormonally. We get a big burst of adrenaline and hormones to get the baby out, because we need that, get this baby out. So it does change, and adrenaline clears us so we can get out of a situation. So it's getting your baby out of your situation. That's what it's doing.
And actually, before I started pushing, I almost forgot this. I stopped to take a little snack. I had brought some honey sticks, which were really nice to give me just a burst of energy. And the midwife was I said, I would like to have a snack now. And I looked at her and she said, yeah, that's great. Give yourself some energy. You're about to start pushing. So I think I had a honey stick and maybe a muffin, like a healthy muffin that I had made myself. I can't remember. And I had some water, and then I was like, okay, I'm ready. I can do this now. And from birth class, I thought pushing was going to be really fast. I thought I was going to give maybe 1 or 2 pushes and be done. And that wasn't the case for me. So I pushed a few times, and then I asked the midwife, can I feel him? Can you see him? Is his head there? And she laughs at me like I'm a crazy person and is, no, you have a while to go. This process might take a while. And I thought, oh, okay. I thought just in 3 pushes you would be out. So we kind of keep pushing. I'm squatting on the bed using the squat bar. I also had practice. I had a feeling that I was going to want to push in the squat position. So every day I would practice my squat position. Probably about 3 times a day, I would try to do this for 2 minutes at a time. During birth, I felt prepared to do this. And the midwife and the nurse even kept saying, I'm really afraid your legs are going to cramp. Do you want to change positions? Like, I'm feeling tight looking at you. Can we try something else? And I just felt, no, this feels good for my body. I've practiced. This is where I want to be.
Like, I'm a squatter. I'm a squatter, ladies.
After maybe 30 minutes, I decided to try to get down on the floor and try some different positions. But I ended up squatting just on the floor anyways. And this midwife that I told you about, she got down on her hands and knees, her head on the floor to watch my birthing process. It was so amazing. She never asked me to move. She just said, do what feels good for your body. I'm going to be there no matter how you want to be.
Yay for that midwife. That's so rare in a hospital setting, Lily. Fantastic.
I really lucked out. And so I'm squatting on the floor, and they said, well, if you're just going to continue squatting, might as well get on the bed, because then you can use the squat bar. We can see a little better. Let's put you back up there. So we tried that. And then after a while, I start to do, she says that the head is coming. Maybe I could see it. So I switched to side lying. and the nurse is holding my leg, and we pull a mirror out so I can see. And the stage is taking longer than I'd expected, but I'm able to tell myself, this is good. This is a good sign. Baby is stretching me. I probably won't have any tearing. He's making room for his slow debut. This is actually the best scenario. The ring of fire isn't too bad yet. After a few more pushes, the ring of fire gets really intense. And when my midwife said, oh, you might be feeling a ring of power, I said to myself, just because she's saying this doesn't mean that I need to feel it. And I didn't for a few more surges. And then I did very strongly. But I remembered I don't need to feel what she's saying. I can just listen to my body and not go into that place.
Well, and I love that you just slipped and said ring of power instead of ring of
Oh,
fire.
did I? I didn't even notice that. That's crazy.
That's really cool. A Freudian slip that really, I mean, come on.
Yeah, that's really cool. And this is the only time in my labor where I wanted it to be over. There was no point during the surges that I felt like I couldn't do it. I always felt in control. I felt like I could continue on. And this was the only time I just felt like, I'm ready. This would be great if it was done by now.
Yeah, I'm over it.
So after a few more pushes, Max is finally out. He gets put on my chest right away. And the midwife tells me afterwards the reason the pushing probably took so long is he came out sideways and with a little hand up in his head. So she didn't say that's why pushing took so long, but she did say that's the hardest position to push in. So I'm assuming that's why it took longer. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that?
She's right. And that might also explain the 3.5-minute surges. Because baby's even coming through the pelvis with extra width, right? And there's no water now, so there's no balloon to kind of help him adjust. He's having to do it full force in between the surges and move. Plus he's got his hand up there. So you've got width and he might be coming in at a funky angle. So, and how many, because you didn't push that long comparatively to some moms who are pushing 4 hours. How long did you push for?
I pushed for about an hour. So really not long. The midwife was like, this was really fast for a first-time mom. I just had these really unrealistic expectations. I also, one thing, the nurse, I felt so prepared for the surges and I forgot to practice the pushing stages. And that's what I would change for my next baby because the nurse really wanted me to bear down, hold my breath, count to 10. And in my head, I knew I don't have to birth like this, but I don't really have the energy or the practice to remember what I want to do. I didn't write this down on my notes for my mom or my husband. So I'm going to follow the nurse's lead. She's been really supportive in doing everything that I wanted. They do this all the time. I'm going to continue. And I think I remember trying to do like a J breath, really imagine the air coming in my mouth, out down my belly and out my vagina and using a low breath. But I didn't love getting told to hold my breath and count to 10. That wasn't really a good, I don't know, that just didn't really work for me, I don't think.
I still want to compliment you on you have followed your body the whole way. You waited to push. You knew you could visualize with the feeling that was going on in your body. You were very intuitive with that, knowing that maybe I don't want to do this. However, with a nuchal hand, right, we need some pressure there. Because I trust your intuition from what you've said so far, you listening to that, if it didn't feel right in your body, I think you would have stopped. You would have been like, nope, I need to walk. Because your intuition is spot on. So I say yay.
That's something I would not consider myself like a woo person. I would not say that I was very in touch with my feelings, my own body, my intuition before labor. And going through this process of fully trusting my body, trusting my baby, did so much for my own empowerment to start my motherhood journey. It was the best gift that I could have given myself to start postpartum. Just thinking about it makes me teary-eyed and thinking in that moment, I was so equally excited to meet my baby, to meet Max, to continue to develop this beautiful mother-son relationship and start our journey of finding out who he is. But the feeling of empowerment and how proud I was of myself was something that I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. It was just the most amazing feeling. I love it. I don't know how else to describe it.
And it is a gift you give yourself. Like you can look back and say, I did everything I could have done. And even if there was something you didn't plan on, you still would have looked back and said, I did everything.
Yes. And I felt open for that going into labor. I would tell my midwife during our appointments, I'm practicing for an unmedicated birth, but I'm open for what happens. And I truly felt that in my body, that I'm going to do everything I can to set myself up for success, but I'm open to following my baby's cues. I'm open to trusting my body. I'm going to see where this leads me without any judgment, without any criticism on myself, to see how this process unfolds.
Okay, so this part's baffling to me and I'm loving it all at the same time. You said, I'm not that woo, right?
Uh-huh.
The affirmations that you practiced daily are woo.
Yeah.
And they connect you to the power centers in your body from top to bottom and how to connect with your baby. And also they've always been there, but understanding how amazing you already are, just point blank with no practice or anything, you have such strength in yourself. And you learned about that throughout the whole birthing process. Then you practiced it. Then you actually moved through that. But you were already empowered, but now you feel it.
Yes. Yeah, yes. I felt empowered going into birth. And I think that was kind of a theme of my birth. You had talked about kind of what are some of your themes of birth. I would say empowerment. And I felt intellectually empowered going into birth. And then I felt just this all-encompassing empowerment in my body after birth.
You were able to trust it. So great. It makes a huge difference when you trust the process, right? And you can come out however you want, Max. Throw your hands up, whatever. We're going to do it. And the fact that you even checked in with, well, it's slow and steady. This is the way it should be.
Yeah.
Even though I'm done with that ring of fire and I would like that itchy burning thing to stop, it's still the softest way. Did you tear?
Yes. I know a girl in our birth class, this was one of her biggest fears. I didn't have a big fear about tearing, but I did end up having a 2nd-degree tear in my perineum area, I think just due to his hand and his positioning.
Due to his hand, yep.
So that wasn't ideal, and that took away a little bit of our golden hour moments just because it took a while for her to stitch me up. And she did a really great job, and she said she was really taking her time and making sure the stitches were done well. But I mean, it still was a little painful getting stitched.
Yeah. Did you get some lidocaine or did you do it?
She did.
Okay, good. Yeah, that makes a huge difference.
Yeah. But Max was on top of me and it was just while she was stitching me up, and it was both beautiful. And I think at one point, maybe 20 minutes in, I said, are you about done?
I don't even care if it's a zigzag at this point. Just nod it, be done. And what did it, because we do so much visualization in class with the meditations and stuff, holding Max and looking up at Jeff. Had you already seen that in your mind?
My mom captured a picture of me looking up at Jeff while I'm holding Max, and it melts my heart. It's forever my probably favorite photo. And you think your spouse and you think this person, Jeff and I have been together maybe 9, going on 10 years in 2 months. And I have never loved him more than in this postpartum phase, watching him transition into a father and a caregiver. The amount of support that he provided me after birth was so amazing. And Max, those first few days and continue, it hasn't stopped. But watching him transition into a father has been so beautiful.
I love that she took a picture. That's even in one of the visualizations that the photographer sneaks in and takes the picture. That's so crazy. I think I did see that picture. I think you sent that to me and it is beautiful.
Okay. Yeah, it's such a good photo.
It is beautiful. Oh, we love it. I have goosebumps. Yay, Jeff. Thanks for being a good caretaker. Good dad. Yeah, he did. Yeah. His questions, all the dads in that class, their questions were, what about this? And what about that? The discussion was amazing.
Yeah, Jeff is an engineer. I'm an accountant. And so when we went back for our 6-week appointment, the midwife said, I know you were so anxious about all of this. And I never felt anxious. I'm just an information person. I want all the information. And I think sometimes our healthcare providers don't want to bombard us with information, especially first-time parents. They're afraid it's going to be overwhelming. I don't feel that way. I can process a lot of information. I can synthesize. I can take what I need and discard what I don't. So taking your class provided us with information in a not scary way to be prepared. And so it's funny when she said, oh yeah, you were so anxious. I'm glad it went well. And I thought, we weren't anxious. We just wanted to know every single detail.
I was going to say, I'm an accountant. Attention to detail is my thing, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we get so many engineers and accountants that come through. So I don't know why unmedicated birth class is their thing, but that's the same thing. It's detailed notes, just as long as they're prepared and whatever they need will show up in labor, right? But they don't have to know it all, but they do. And just like you, I throw out what I don't need, take what I do. If you are giving good advice instead of you can't do it, you'll say that. If you're giving good advice to families for how to prepare for birth or plan, or what advice would you give new families?
I think if it was someone who wanted an unmedicated birth and that was their goal, I would say just be prepared, practice your meditations, practice visualizations, and trust your body and trust your baby. In most cases, I know that sometimes this isn't always true, but in most cases, our bodies were meant to birth and our bodies are perfectly prepared to do this. Your body's going to make a baby that's the right size for you, that you can birth on your own. You can do this. If this is what you want, I fully trust that you can do this. And I would just encourage a mom to stop listening to negativity. Towards the end of my pregnancy, it is amazing how many strangers come up to you to tell you something when you're pregnant. I would start telling them, I can tell you're really excited. I'm only accepting positive birth stories right now. So if you don't have a positive birth story, I'd love to hear about it later. Right now, I'm only collecting positivity.
And thank you, stranger. Don't touch my belly. That used to annoy me too. Everybody feels, I can put my hands on her body. No, you can't. Don't touch me. And we do have to be our best advocate throughout our whole pregnancy. And then when baby comes, we are their best advocate. It's so key to learn that early on. And I love that you took the time to even learn who you were inside that you may have not known before. But now going into postpartum, you can rely on yourself to be like, oh no, there's something off with that. I'm going to follow that lead.
Yeah, definitely.
Tell Jeff, congratulations. And your mom, A+ to mom.
I know. She's amazing.
A+. Does she have anything that she's told you that stuck out with your birth?
She said that it was one of a really powerful moment for her. And she feels really grateful that I'd given her this gift to be with me during that process. It was a gift to me to have her there, but she also felt like it was a gift to experience that. I think she was a little hesitant going into it, how she would feel seeing me in so much pain. And I was nervous for that too. Like having a doula, maybe she would be a little more removed from this situation and someone who had seen this process a lot to know how normal everything was. And just having my mom and Jeff, who love me as much as the world, watching me go through this. But she said that during it, she didn't feel, I don't know if didn't feel bad for me was the word, but she didn't feel worried, or she knew it was pain with purpose, and she knew that I could get through it, and she had the confidence in me to work through it. So it was a really great bonding experience for us, and I'm really glad she was there, and she's really glad she was there.
I'm speechless, because it's when you have someone that you love so much that can set aside their worry, because it is a big deal for a mom to go, and even partners, they say that, whoa, watching that was so intense. And I knew she could do it, but it was so intense. You know, it is such an overwhelming experience, plus the hormones and pheromones in the air, but it's something you'll never forget. It's a bonding cement moment for relationships.
Yeah. I think Jeff too, watching all of the birth videos in class had him really prepared. I remember the first video we watched in class, we both were a little shell shocked and looked at each other and were like, we're going to do that. And seeing so many really normalized it. And he felt really confident in the birth room too, to remember, okay, this is normal. This is supposed to be happening. My wife can do this. I have trust in her. How can I support her? And having all of those tools was really empowering for him too.
Now maybe I should show a birth where we watch a 3-hour pushing phase, so that you have realistic expectations. Everyone, this whole class, we're just going to watch a vagina in action for 3 hours. Yeah.
That'd be a long class.
It'd be a long class, and you'd be like, this is so boring. You'd hate it. And we watched the squatting video. So when you see the squatting video and those babies are just sliding out, right, with no help, We don't know how long they had been in that push phase before we see the little, because it's Hollywood, man. We're just going to get the action shot.
Yeah.
So,
afterwards, I realized, I wonder if those videos were spliced because that was a fast. But I hear from so many other moms, they push for 3 pushes, first-time moms who use hypnobirthing. Because I think hypnobirthing, this probably isn't a great segment right at the end. I should have said this earlier. But with hypnobirthing, you really learn how to help your body birth. And so doing all of this, I mentioned my mom had 12-hour labors. Mine was 6. And I think it's because I was so relaxed and I helped my body get my baby out. I helped it on its path instead of blocking it with tightness and fear. It was able to do its own thing.
Yeah, you did get out of your own way brilliantly. And if you think about when baby adds a little extra width, then yeah, that can take a little more time. If that hand had been down, you may have had a 3-hour labor, right?
Yeah.
Your body knows how to maneuver that baby to get the baby out, whether or not there's a hiccup. And second births are even faster. And if you already did 6, and if that hand, the next baby's hand is down, you might want to just stay home. So great. So great. Thank you, Lily, for coming today. And I look forward to hearing about your next baby.
Thank you, Care. I credit you with so much of my success. So thank you. And I hope any listener here got something for their birth story that can help them. And I hope they all take your class because you really prepare us for anything.
Oh, thank you. I love what I do. I'm lucky.
Thanks for joining us today. And remember, it's your body, your choice, and finding your voice is your power. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us in all the places, and go to birtheducationcenter.com for our blog and more online education classes. And we'll see you next week.